Good morning, dear guests and participants. We are happy to greet you on the National Roundtable on support of state cadastre by the communities and the agribusiness. And today, Ukraine and the agrarian sector, they are on a very important phase, which can be a very big impetus for prosperity of Ukraine. For the recent time, lots of legislative acts were adopted, and nobody was indifferent to the future of Ukraine and the land market. And as we know, since the 1st of July, the first phase of agrarian land market will start. And today on our roundtable, we will speak about the market, its future, and we will dismantle the myths, and we will hear the comments of the experts, and we will hear the opinion of notaries and the banking sector, and the readiness for the land market. And before we start, I will invite for the greeting word Andriy Dikun, head of All Ukrainian Agrarian Council Association. For more than 30 years of our independence, we are passing through the phase through which Ukrainian agrarian pass, and so it's a very important phase in our country. And today we are in full staff ready, and our experts are ready to solve these issues. And thank you, Andriy. And before we start our first panel, and we will listen to our experts and guests, I would like to make a short presentation of our first phase in regional roundtables within the project of support of state reform by communities and agribusiness. And I would like to invite you to the presentation and to present to you in short. So since 20th April and until 20th of May, we had several roundtables in 24 regions of Ukraine with 2,000 participants from agrarian sector and communities. And we got more than 120 requests how to interpret the legislation and the positions to describe different issues, and all the issues were very, very important for every agrarian almost in Ukraine, not depending where he lives. So like undistributed land, decentralization of land, transition of land to communities, market of land, which was the most discussed because of some fears that in the media there was a lot of information which was not so true. And on every issue we developed proposals and recommendations, and we got some observations on maybe on some incorrect incorrect formulation of barriers which prevent to establish land relations. All these issues were grouped in some blocks, and which we plan to transfer to competitive authorities. Maybe some issues would be regulated on the level of laws, and some secondary law acts as for legal errors in the cadastre. We discussed such problems as land plots which are not in the land cadastre, so to say white spots which prevent the land market. In case of technical errors, we had the agreement from the adjacent land user, which is also a barrier, and maybe a request from the law to agree the limits with adjacent users, and in practice it brings to difficulties and consideration of cases in courts, and the courts are positive, which confirms that this the norm is a barrier and we need to regulate it. And also there are some norms in the laws which were adopted for dozens of years, which were made to fill in the state cadastre, but due to some problems with financings, these issues on the level of cadastre could not be settled, namely technical documentation. A very important issue was the massives of agricultural land and melioration and watering. This picture which allows us, when investor put in lots of money in some ameliorative system, does not have this opportunity to use it in full, because there are no norms to let him use this opportunity to use his right to hire the land or exchange the land plot with the neighbor, or just let's say the competitor, and which were the drawbacks which were studied. And insufficient definition of the land massive, and impossibility in the state cadastre to register the massive as a land plot to implement different norms, and also the procedure to exchange of land plots inside the massive is very difficult, which brings to legal courts and conflicts. So there was a proposal from agro businesses and a request to people's deputies, to legislators, to settle this issue. Also the issue of relaunching the rent contracts of land due to lack of norms in the legislation on the procedure, how to refuse to relaunch the rent agreement. Unfortunately, locally, as we talked to every regional cadastre authority, they had different practices. So some refuse for their reasons, the others refuse for their own reasons, and they create some unclear practice. And for sure, the positive result of settling this issue will be prevention of corruption, to prevent shifting the rights to some other person. And very active issue number top one was the issue for farmers, the issue of farmers' land. Distribution of them, purchase. There are lots of norms which are absent, so that would allow them to register their right to register their right to use, or just inheritance of this right of use. And there was a problem. We would like to hear also the commenter, because now in the register of titles, it is not possible to register such title as eternal use, because it is not envisaged, but we have such some citizens who have this right. Also, distribution of land, because different norms, the same norm in different departments, it is treated differently. Some think that to distribute land between the members of the community only to one found, for example, or some they say that land plots, they should be distributed only those who were delivered to a farmer companies. So all members of a pharma company could be using, who could be about 20 people and even more. So these are the interpretations. They're different. In the same structure, but by different departments, can bring to some corruption results. Also, in the law of Ukraine on agricultural land, it is envisaged that citizens can buy the land by the people who got this land. They changed they got these land plots for eternal use, or they got rent agreements. So we will have the opinion of the expert, but lots of issues they're controversial. How to register the rights, how to buy, what to do if the community decides not to sell it, or will be there any mechanism to stimulate the community to sign this agreement on purchase. It was very important. Also, we will have to ask it to our honorable people's deputies. Some farmers, they consider that it is not unfair that the right to buy is given to those who got this land only before the 2001, but lots of farmers got land for rental, but for farming. And there was also the proposals to provide them this right of purchase, but maybe we can provide the limitation of lands up to 50 hectares, and it would be the same as those who got that for eternal use. Lots of issues there were about collective land use. It is already regulated by the law, but lots of issues there raising in communities. So it prevents to establish rental agreements. Also, inter-field roads, because the land users would be happy to use such lands and pay the contributions, but local authorities, they do not make inventories of such roads, and they even refuse to make a registration. So it is very important to bring the information to local authorities, because we have decentralization. If before the senior cadastre departments were very specialized in these issues, but now the communities, we needed to help them here, and we were held in these roundtables, and we think they were very useful. And on this, in my presentation, I finish, and thanks for your attention. I will start our first panel, and I invite for this word our very honorable guest, Minister of Agrarian Policy and Food of Ukraine, Mr. Roman Oleshenko. Good morning, dear colleagues.
I'm pleased to welcome all of you at this event. Really, it's very important to participate in the national roundtable discussions, because for us it's important to know the feedback from the regions. For us, it's important to mention that we have a very good communication, and this will allow us to do everything to the benefit of these processes. Here, we had a sort of a breakthrough with regards to decentralization and deregulation processes. Last week, they adopted the draft law on the decentralization, and this week, that's at 2195 draft law was adopted. It is devoted to the lease issues. So for us, it's important also to see that there are certain changes with the state cadastre agency, and this will allow us to eliminate certain corruption practices that take place in our everyday life today. For us, it's important to highlight some other issues, how we'll be transferring the lands to the communities, how we'll transfer authorizations to the local level, the regulations related to launching the land market in this country. For us, it's important to highlight that all this has been done with the sectoral associations. We have heard them, and so the relevant laws will be signed by the president. We have more than 1 month to the date of launching the land market turnover in this country, and we believe that every person will have the available online information on the transactions with the land. Also, we believe that a number of the local communities, territorial communities will connect to it. And now we will have a full support from all the government agencies and ministries, and we are ready for the land market reforms. As to the manipulations that were voiced by some people, actually we have started the land reform based on the national compromise pattern, because we have taken into account all the thoughts that were communicated to us. We understand that there should not be no haste with the process. No doubt within the first 6 months of the land market functioning, no doubt we will be trying to work sustainably, and we have monitored these processes for a dozen of years, and now we realize what lacks. So for us, it's important to use all available instruments like as emphasis, inheritance, ownership, possession. For us, it's important also to mention that the state should endorse a number of documents as to the facility granting crediting in this sphere, and this issue is highlighted in one of the drafts of the law that we expect will be adopted very soon. So the state also envisaged 1 billion hryvnias in order to compensate the interest on the loans. For the participants of the market, we'll be working closely with the Ministry of Finance, so we have sufficient resources to use all available instruments that will allow us to launch the land market in this country. Also, in the end of May, we will endorse more documents that will be critical for these processes. So the priority sub-laws will be endorsed during the next months. So we will resolve such issues as the standard cost of this or that parcel of land. And also next week we will have also the land forum, in framework of which we will be voicing the key issues as to the vision, how we'll see these processes related to the land market transformations for the next 10 years. No doubt we should actually change the quasi-model for the land ownership that was in place before. Issues related to amelioration and of the lands also will be taken fully into account, and we will be having the full support in order to give guarantees in this or that insured cases that could arise. Also, foodstuffs, security issues are very important for this country. No doubt we are working in a team, and we are full of optimism, because there is the all possible support from the National Agrarian Council and the Agrarian Association. We are working closely, and have the joint efforts in order to resolve this issue. If any practical issue arises, no doubt we will be providing adjustments and correction of the effective laws and sub-laws. We also understand that our citizens will be active in this process. For us, it's important to implement land reform on the basis of the national consensus, and we have the joint understanding, a common understanding, because Ukraine here has started already the land reform, and we would like to be a true state where we'll have the relevant institutions. And we believe that in this country we should have the fully fledged land resources that will allow us to have the benefits from the proper land use and land management. We have also representatives from the agrarian sector in Uman. They could ask some questions, if any. And also we have a YouTube broadcasting. We have also the esteemed YouTube audience, and they will have also a good chance to answer questions to our panelists. Please join our discussion. In case our participants in Uman Studio has any question, please, we are ready to answer these questions. Some people had doubts that we could launch the proper land market. For us, it's important Unfortunately, there is a very bad communication with Oman office. I will repeat, whether it's worth to rely on the state support before 1st January 2024, when individuals who would like to buy the land. We will take all possible efforts in order to provide for the financial instruments. We have two-level vision on the part of the Ministry of Agriculture. It's necessary to regulate the issues because we should level taxation for the agricultural producers which work in the legislation framework and those who work in the shade. For us, it's important to take from the shade thousands and thousands of hectares. All the resources that will be accumulated through the de-shadowing processes will be accumulated in the special development fund, which will be rechanneled for the development of AGRISECTOR. The second issue is actually justice to be reinstated with regards to giving support for agricultural producers, because they should produce not less than 1% of the GDP based on the agreements when agrarians were lifted certain easy terms with regards to taxation. We believe that the agrarian sector will be at the lead of the development of the agrarian sector, and we believe that despite of the fact that legal entities will be allowed to the land buying processes from the 1st of January 2024, we understand understand that the resources should be allowing all citizens to get a chance to buy the land. If we need more resources, financial resources, we see that lots of resources could be recovered through the shadowing processes because we have lots of land in the shade and they don't pay no resources. For us, there will be enough resources for redistribution of these resources to our real agrarians who are ready to work not in the shade, and the instrument of compensating their interest rate will be allowed for them for the long-term perspective. Thank you, Roman. Uman, do you have any question to the participants? Unfortunately, oh, but now we have started our work, but we understand what is sustainable system. For us, it's important. Actually, we know that there are certain drawbacks in the current legislation because with regards to the redistribution and distribution of the land, for us it's important to understand whether actually, could you provide a prompt response when we have an open raiding attacks? Do you have an instrument for this? Because we understand that some MPs are not interested, some agrarian entrepreneurs are not interested in these processes. For us, it's important to see whether there are real anti-raiding procedures. Thank you very much. I will repeat your question because your voice really was really vague. Do you expect any operational response procedures for the open raiding? In the Ministry of Agrarian Policy, currently we are finalizing the order. Actually, we have anti-raiding commission at the Ministry of Agriculture. Also, the deputy ministers also will be working on this. We have representatives from the Ministry of Justice, representatives from the local powers, and we should work on a special instrument that will allow us to give a prompt response to the open raiding attacks. And also this, because there are certain groups also that are interested in the chaos at the level of individual farms. So we should have an instrument to give a prompt response. And for us, it's important to take all this into account. With regards to the state companies, unfortunately, there are actually very bad cases when we see this sometimes happens also with the participation of the decisions taken by the Ministry of Justice and also managers of such state companies working on the land. Also, they have no real titles for the land. They don't pay taxes. Artificially, they lead these companies to bankruptcy. And for us, it's important to take into account these drawbacks in our documents, legal documents. And if you have any case of this kind, please address the Minister of Justice directly. Actually, our guests in Uman studio would like to comment on this? You have no more questions? Thank you very much. Thank you very much, esteemed participants in the Women's Studio. Mr. Lashenka, thank you very much for the well-grounded information and your answers to the questions relayed from this Women's Studio. And now we have online our experts from the Committee of Agrarian Policy, and they will detail us on the following: what legislation acts have been already prepared and what issues still exist in order to cover the gaps in the legislation. Sergei Bilenko, the floor is open for you. Mr. Sergei, are you with us? Unfortunately, Sergei has disappeared from the. Maybe we will adjust now. Maybe we will actually transfer his presentation for the later timing. And we have here Sergei Kubach. He's the head of the USAID Agro project in Ukraine. Sergei Kubach will detail us on how we'll be buying out farmlands, how the procedure of land buyout will go, and on what our farmers could rely on. Thank you very much. It's one of the critical issues that are asked by business, by farmers. From the 1st of July, farmers will have a chance to buy out their land shares that are in their use. And this is envisaged by the law on the land turnover, because this law comes in effect on the 1st of July. I would like to welcome the government, the parliament, the Minister of Agriculture, Mr. Leshenka, on adoption of the law 2195. It's a real breakthrough because it's really critical for us. So it will be the fully fledged timing to enter the land market turnover. We understand that all these actors are very supportive because business and farmers need this support. And that's why I would like to highlight the issue on the land sales, how shares that are in use with the farmers. Actually, this privilege was granted for them because these farm enterprises and farms could buy out the land parcels on easy terms. And because no auctions are envisaged for these processes, it will be on the pricing that is equal to the cost, standard land cost. It is a privileged cost. They could pay the price of these land parcels in installments, and they actually give them the title for the land from the first installment paid. And practically, they are given for the farms which have the land parcels at the right of their life inherited possession that was very easy from 1992, and actually they have the right to the permanent use. It is also certified by the state acts. Actually, all the state acts were issued based on the state land code effective from 1992, and they got these lands in at least and some of them took these land parcels at lease. And actually what they should do, they should submit the application to the local government bodies, and the 2194 law actually regulates this. We are talking, it is in line with the authorizations that are granted with this law, because territorial communities are granted these laws. Actually, they were issued the title, it could be the state actor on the life inherited act, or it could be the lease act, and there are some peculiarities on this. If we have a land parcel that is registered in the land cadastre, so the territorial community, the RADA, could consider this application on the sale of this land parcel. But if the land parcel is not registered in land cadastre, it's necessary to register this land parcel in the cadastre, and then afterwards they issue a special document order in order to develop the technical documentation in nature, and then this documentation will be agreed on with the state cadastre bodies, and even more with the laws governing this issue. You should simply submit this decision to the land cadastre body, and the farmer or the farm enterprise should actually submit an application to the land cadastre registration. It could be also done online, and they will be issuing the land excerpt. Also a special title will be issued as the excerpt from the state land cadastre. Currently in the land cadastre, there are all the data. We fill the data on the standard land cost on the specific land parcel.
Немає тоді
If we don't have this, we need to add the extract from the documents on money assessment, financial assessment, and it goes to the council of the community where the plot is located, and the community considers, and if everything is compatible with the law, as I said, as the council takes a decision that the plot should be sold, prepares the contract agreement. This agreement is signed by the farmer company and the council, and it is notarized, by the way. And when the first payment is made, the notary or the state register the title of the property right in the register, and that's all. It is simple, so like this, and it becomes a private, this land plot. So this is a very easy procedure. Besides, I would say that we worked through it, and we even composed an approximate agreement to a model agreement, as far as I know. It is in the local state administration, and it will be registered and recommended by the Ministry of Agrarian Policy. Nothing is difficult, so it should work as a sweet switch. So thank you, Mr. Sergei. How do you think, can the community block this sale? They don't have enough votes, so they don't want it. Is there some emphasis to protect the rights? Of course, the citizens have the possibility to protect their rights. This is the right of the farmer company. If this application is presented and it is it is according to the law, and he has the right to buy it. The council should take the decision. But in this way, I think that the blocking can be on the preliminary phase when the council will not accept this application or some artificial blocks. I would like to mention that local self-government bodies and authorities, they are responsible for even doing nothing. Thank you. And for the last several days, the mass media was saying that those who would not buy the lands for their continuous use on these lands will be taken away from them. Can you say to us if it is a myth? Yes, it is a myth, and we are living in a democratic country, and so taking the land plot by force can be done by through court only, because only raiders will be capable to take the land, and the time to buy these lands is unlimited. But for sure, so those who will use this right at the first phase, he will be capable to get all the advantages according to the law, because the council gets the advantages, the money coming from the sale of this plot goes into the community, and the farmer invests into his own community. Why the community should be against? Yes, of course we agree with you, Sergei, and we hope that communities will understand this, and they will not prevent those who want the farmers to buy the land plots on which they work. Human Studio, do you have the questions to Sergei? For example, the farmer bought the land and the money went to the community. It is very good. But whether the farmer will get the same tax basis which he had previously, which that he paid before, land tax and so on. Thank you for your question, and maybe I will comment because I am a lawyer. So on taxation, taxation does not change. The land tax which you pay using the land on the right of constant use, you pay the same, and the tax amounts, tax rates, they are established by the local self-government authorities, and in different regions they can be different. So this is that depends on your community and communication with it. So of course I will add to you to own the land on the right of constant property. It is more profitable, not as on the right of constant use. So because this will get allowed to get more loans, and this land can be used not only as a production tool, but as a mean to get loans in the financial sector. Thank you, Uman Studio. Do you have questions? As for budget of the community, this is the rent. So the rent paid 10%, but what is the rent? Will it remain? Will it be reduced by 10%, or other mechanism of the rent? No. When you buy the land plot for your property, so you don't pay the rent agreement, and you don't pay any more the rent, but you pay the land tax within 1% of the cost of this land, but you don't pay 10% of the rental. Thank you, and thank you, Sergei. And we have Sergei Belenko, who came back to communication. We invite him, and please, your floor. The floor is yours. Yes, Sergei, we see you. So, good morning, dear participants. And also, so Mykola Solsky had to be here, but we have a session in the Verkhovna Rada, so he should take a part in this session. So I would like to be short about the activity of the Agrarian Committee to reform the land relations and to make the land market launch more comfortable for all market participants. So in general, we can say that all legislative activity of Agrarian Committee in the land relations is aimed at three main targets. First, just and comfortable conditions for all participants of a market for land market. Second is decentralization and shift of as much as possible of managerial and administrative powers to local level. And third is deregulation. I would like to go through all of them just in brief. As for just circulation of agricultural land, the law, and it becomes effective since 1st July on land circulation of agrarian land. And I agree with Roman Leshchenko, who called this law as a political compromise. And this is a compromise really, and the face is elimination of barriers and participation of stakeholders. So this law reduced a lot, very much, the number of people who can get the property laws on land, on agricultural law. Lands, and these people could be only Ukrainian residents. Also, circulation of land is reflected in 2194, and it is presented for signature by the Speaker of Verkhovna Rada. It will go to President Zen. So the priority right is very well described there for agricultural lands. The procedure is fully new, which can be done with the state registrars, the notaries, and it envisages actual communication between the entity of the property right and the owner, not like it is done today with empty envelopes and violations, but this procedure today will be connected to notary, and this notary will establish these communications, and the communication will be automated, and this difficult procedure will be aimed at only one thing: to reduce the raidership in land relations. Of course, agriculture is a big industry, and where lots of incomes, the criminals are there, so it will reduce the criminal situation. So there is another procedure of circulation, and the adopted draft law 2194, the right of farmers to buy the land plots which they were using for constant use. 2194 gave this right not to farmers only, but their inheritance. I would like to mention that the right to use is not inherited today, and the heir should only show that he is a heir, and this right was opened. If there are several heirs, they should buy the right to use the plots. As for violations, to refuse how to buy the loans. So these are not discriminative, and the law establishes in which procedure they should be applied. As for decentralization, I would like to say that the law was even very good, but sometimes people say that it was the deprival of land cadastre of their authority or powers, but the issue is very much more difficult because we use other lands for agriculture. So in fact, it is the shift of land powers to local authorities, agrarian lands, industrial lands, recreational lands, and water bodies, and state forests will stay in state ownership. These lands they are shifted to municipal ownership, and we hope that it will not be taken by nobody. So the era which appeared in 2001, when with the local authorities they were deprived to use the 85% of land in Ukraine, it will be corrected, and the right to use the land will be done by the authorities which are elected by people. Then the regulation, I would like to mention that any rights to land very often is related to land management procedure, very difficult procedure with land documents, and the corruption is very big there. Lots of corruption from land resources, from ecology, from archaeology, architecture, and inheritance, and so on. So this multi-level documentation was transformed in some money on every level. So this sphere is reformed fully, and the main responsibility for the compliance of the documentation is placed on the state cadastre and the local self-government authorities. So the documentation will be checked only once, and these bodies will be responsible for legitimacy. So I would like to say that the moratorium was a double. The one which will be raised from 1st July, not only for agricultural land, but the change of the use of this land in agricultural way, and this second moratorium will be abolished, and to improve the procedure of change of the use of the land. 1 year ago, we adopted a 711 big law, which changed how the territory should use the land, and the local authorities got lots of powers to manage the territories and the lands inside in the settlements and outside the settlements, and they have all the rights to change in which way to use the land. And if the local communities they establish the documents and they define where there should be agriculture, where it should be constructed, and where should be the industry, if it is adopted within these zones, the local authorities will take the decision how to change the use. But if they want to pass from agriculture to other way of use, the owner should pay the difference in 10% of industrial evaluation. So this procedure will be established by in the law and specified by state cabinet of ministers. So the documentation will be quite difficult. However, this is the decision of the community. If the community decided that this facility will be changed, you can change it, but they will not make it the final decision of only the authority. So there are hundreds and hundreds of pages of changes, and until now this law, which was adopted already, is being processed, and we have registered lots of things already, and I would like to tell you in a couple of words what we should expect for in a couple of years. So first of all, we registered a big draft law on liquidation of constant use of land. So the opposition launches lots of fakes that if the people will be deprived of this constant use right, these lands will become municipal or state, and the farmers will be without nothing. So this the constant use of land, the right to use the land will remain with the entity until he decides to change. As for local authorities, these rights will be decided by the economic department of the authority, and it will give the right of the local authority to shift the land for rent without stopping constant use of land, and in some cases sell even the plots. Of course, if these plots are not the forests, or maybe in some natural reserves, or just controlled by state very closely. So all these schemes from common use, common activities, investment agreements, like quasi agreement, which were developed by the state companies, should be left in the past, and the state companies will transmit the rights to use the land, but through the land auctions. And also, we prepare for the second hearing another draft law establishing the procedure of privatizing the law of state and municipal agricultural companies. Very difficult draft law. It is prepared in Verkhovna Rada, and I hope it will be voted in the next session. Yesterday, we adopted the new edition of water resources use. And the owners will be use some irrigation systems. It will be improving the melioration. Thank you, and please your questions. Thank you, Sergey. And we have questions in chat. As you are involved in writing the draft laws, please comment the questions from participants. Whether it is connected to people who got this right to use constantly the land of.
In case this land lease is registered for the permanent use, actually we have, it's a sort of a compromise, and it is said in the law. So the leaseholders could buy out, but they should re-register it for the permanent use. Could you provide the same rights for the farmers who got the land after 2010? Have you considered the ceiling of acreage that will allow them to enjoy this right? We have considered these issues, but the committee has not agreed to it, because for us it's important that as to the permanent use, it's a sort of a quasi-ownership. It's not limited in time. And the state should treat it slightly different, because the real lease is, actually leaseholders, both of the land of agricultural and other lands. We understand that this issue will be raised once again in future work. Having a chance here to talk with you, could you comment one of the requirements given on the law as to the ceiling of acreage up to the 100 hectares. There are lots of discussions around. If, for example, so if the persons as of the 1st of July already has 100 hectares, they will be given grants, given chance to buy more 100 hectares. Could you comment on this? The total acreage of land should not exceed the ceiling of 100 hectares. 50 hectares will be allowed. If the person, so there is a sense to talk that because some people said that everything will be nulled and everything should start from 100 hectares. If any question to our speaker? Esteemed studio in Uman, Uman studio, we see you, we are happy to see you, but we don't hear you. So from chat we have another questions. Lands in the purpose in the permanent use with legal entities. Actually, I have already highlighted this issue. One, we would like to provide for the comfortable environment for all the actors who have the land in the permanent use in order to allow them to get it in a permanent, as a permanent property. So for us, it's important that agricultural lands, you see there are lots of sectors in the economy that had certain acreage of agricultural lands. Actually, for these actors, we allow to buy these lands, and they could buy it and pay in installments for the long period. Thank you, Sergey. We continue, and we invite Inna Bernatska. She represents the Notary Chamber of Ukraine. We understand that they are a very important actor in the land market. We understand for us it's important to see really they will actually, if you have any question, please join us and ask questions after Ina's speech. Good afternoon, esteemed audience. Actually, from the very beginning, we monitor on what is going with the land market in this country, from the top level to the rayon level. For us, it's difficult to be neutral and legally balanced because actually we have very different statements and judgments because I will try to use a sort of a simple language with which we communicate with our citizens at local level. And we will describe you how it's going on in the notary community. Notary today actually is ready for the opening the land market in this country. The notary today is very powerful in Ukraine. Actually not as an army before the war. For the years of independence, we have managed to build up a very powerful notary system. We have enough resources. We have enough informational, professional, human resources which are trained and retrained. We also organize work in commissions and working groups, and they actually work on the different documentation, how it should be work in the land market landscape. The Institute of the Right of Property Rights is not so developed as in the European countries because there is the strong responsibility for the property rights in Europe. But the notary community actually performed as the shoulders and the milestone that actually allows to have the registration of property rights. And we have managed to adjust our path when we speak about the protection of the citizens' property rights. We are getting ready for the processes. Also, our notary specialists undergo trainings. Actually, we work on such issues as registration, and in this country, the land market to be opened in July, but it is multicolored, it is black, it is white, it is because there are lots of distortions due to moratorium, and really we enter the land market with the inheritance of certain legal documents that are lawful and unlawful. But for us, it's it's important to fix the ownership with this or that property rights. Also, lots of tasks to be addressed and resolved with regards to the land market, and the state should give the answer on this. With regards to legislation base, we have prepared the law 5709. Actually, we actually we do have the final version of the law 2195, but we understand that we should address such issues as land auctions, land buyout, and why it's so important to work on this. Our notary specialists, they work eye to eye with our citizens, and the notary specialists should be able to give professional answers to all the questions. And this will allow for the person to enjoy the property rights granted by the state. Practically, we will get to the questions and answers session. Believe me, there are lots of questions around this issue. Quite recently, we have discussed the issue of 100 hectares. What is the opinion of the notary with regards to this ceiling 100 hectares? You are a citizen of Ukraine. This issue is very debatable, because today, to have a good count of 100 hectares, the person actually many people don't want to see the concentration of land in one hand. Definitely, we have two areas on which we should put our attention. There is no miracle button on which we should push and see the concentration of the land. We don't have such a miracle button. Actually, this should be with the notary offices and the instruments in their hands. This is the land state cadastre, the state register of land of property rights, and also there should be land books that are kept with the state cadastre bodies, and also some additional registers that, thanks to God, are available with the notary offices. and then they could collect all this information and data to monitor it and to form the judgment on this or that issue. But for us, it's important also as a person who would like to have the land in possession and ownership, they should be conscious of the fact that they should provide the true data, the true information. In case the person provides not a true data on on those, they should be sanctions. We believe that our notary specialists should check all this information in order to have this process just and transparent. And for example, for us, first of all, to check, we should monitor the owner. We should study the land pool around the owner, and the notary specialists should go in depth in this issue. We understand that legislation base is not sufficient. Cabinet of Ministers should endorse another resolution that will allow us to see how this data to be monitored. It will be in development of the Land Code article number 130. And so for us, it's important to see what is the real status of the person who would like to get the land in ownership. There are lots of debates around this. Lots depend on the state and regulators because we should work closely. For us, it's important to understand how we should count the lands that are in the life inherited ownership, and we should also have technical documents. We should actually have the instrument how we should form the consolidated documents for the subject. Such documentation is not available, and this documentation is to be developed. Also, we should work also with the state register on the property rights. And for us, it's important to build up a single document. It's more suitable for work. It's cheaper, and it is to the benefit of those who will acquire these rights. So we have the time for our Woman Studio. Please address your questions to us. Unfortunately, we don't hear our participants. Please, probably you will. Good afternoon. Do you hear us? Good afternoon. Good afternoon. We do hear you. Alexander Morgach, I have a question to all the panelists in the studio with regards to setting up a farm economy. Because all the rights granted after 1020 for setting up the farm economy is not in line with the current laws. For us, it's important really how these lands will be transferred in ownership. These lands cannot be bought out on the privileged terms. The lands that are in lease and after the termination of lease, they could be put on auction. and as to the continuation of a lease, but when the change in the law takes place, these lands could be sold. According to the law that has been adopted, the lands of the state and municipal ownership are not allowed. So they could be also only at lease, and these lease agreements could be continued. More questions from our women's studio? Ina, this question to you. For us, it's important how you will check the origin of the resources on which the person plans to get the land in ownership. We will check, for example, notary specialists perform the functions delegated by the state, the way the state will word it, the way we will behave. So we have an experience how we will check these resources, because we work closely with the financial monitoring agency. Actually, the notary specialist is the actor in the primary financial monitoring. We check declarations, we check all other documents from which we can see the origin and nature of these resources. It could be the certificate on profits, it could be the profit declaration on the profit, and also other documents provided by the taxation office. If, for example, this could be the borrowed resources, it could be based on the inheritance agreement, or if, for example, you have the borrowed resources, this issue will be also checked. No doubt, for us, it will be suitable for the notary system if, for example, the taxation offices will provide overall information on a sort of a lawful and unlawful resources with the individual. We understand for us it's important to work on simplification of the procedure in order to test the resources of the applicants. We have certain doubts with regards that sometimes people cannot prove the true origin of their resources, because sometimes, for example, very often they had the inheritance agreement after which the land parcels came in ownership automatically. But for us, it's important to work on the issue what will be proceeds to the budget. But for us, it's important sell and buy transactions are very important. Because we understand when the persons work on this agreement, when the person pays hundreds of thousand hryvnias for the land parcels, in case they will have some problems in case with the documents, they have some problems. When they have, for example, the first line resale, the second line resale, for us it's important actually to understand how we will protect the property rights. And for example, sometimes people could claim that they did work for dozens of years.
We have a question from the chat, very relevant. Do you know when the notary district will be compatible with the new territorial distribution, and will it be ready for the land market? So yes, we have a problem with the dictionaries of geographical districts and administrative districts. We had some discussions before a specific order of the ministry, because we will change the districts, we will change the stamps. It is not as the problem of the people. It is a problem for us, and we will do everything quietly, so that the society will not feel any problems. But the notary districts will be increased. For example, if in Rivno there were 25 notary districts, there will be now 5 districts, and the territory will be bigger, and the selection of notaries in regions and in the districts will be bigger. So I consider it will be positive for this need and a request from the society. Human Studio, do you have any questions anymore? When another questions, please. The question is the following. So in Iman, there is a local city district and district around the city for notaries. So to pass in the district, you need to take the queue for 1 month or 2, and you have to stay for several hours when you pass this queue. So we need to add more notaries in the local district, which is outside the city of Uman. Please, one more question will be for you about Uman. So you say city of Uman and district Uman of district. Which former districts were included into the local big Uman district? Several previous districts were included. So all the notaries of all the previous administrative districts will be included in the new big territorial districts. Will be capable to work with people from the previous local district around the city. So they will work with the inheritance. They will work with all sales and purchases. And you will be capable to go to other notaries. Increase of number of notaries on the territories. At this moment, notary chamber develops a number of events to improve the best specialists in the towns, in the villages, in the local communities. We will develop a whole program, but to prepare a notary. And a notary, it is not just a person you put in his office. You saw how the local registrars are working in municipal companies. I am a notary for 10 years, and after 10 years of experience, I started to feel myself more or less free in the industry. It's a very long training period, so giving you people just to cover this land market in a couple of years with professionals who are not trained, it will be unreal, because they will not be enough experienced. But to give you anybody, it will be very risky, because they will make mistakes and you will go all to courts. But you will work with local communities. We will adjust our work, so place notaries around Ukraine in such a way that they will be evenly distributed, and new notaries would come into the profession and replace the older ones. And I think that increase of territorial districts will give the solution, because it will reduce the load on the notaries. It will be not abrupt load on previously existing notaries. Thank you, and Uman Studio, do you have any more questions? So we are very sorry, we don't hear very well. You have technical problems. Unfortunately, we don't hear you. We're very sorry. Maybe you can write your question in chat. And until now, we have a question to Ina. How Ina will check this right of purchase of land after the use, after the right of use, and this right was not previously employed. So a very comprehensive topic. So the notaries can check this right and the procedure. If we see the draft law 2194, which was adopted, there is a procedure. It is not a new procedure for us. And when we sell a part of common property in any property, we get the application, we notarize the signature, we call for the person, we check, and it is not a problem if it is regulated inside the law. Thank you. And at this point, our time is up, and our first panel is finished. And we were very thankful to our invited guests, and we hope that a lot of you got the questions, answers to the questions which were burning. And we are not finishing. We will have another panel. We will speak about financing. We will have people from the banking sector. We will speak about consolidation of agrarian lands, and we will see Mr. Taras Vysotský, Deputy Minister of Economic Development. And we will continue in several minutes.
Згідно з нещодавно прийнятим законом про обіг земель, з 1 липня фермери зможуть викупляти земельні ділянки, які вони набули до 2010 року без проведення аукціону. Спеціальний пільговий викуп для українських фермерів дозволяє придбати ділянку у розстрочку на 10 років. Причому право власності можна оформлювати вже після першого платежу. А викупна ціна буде на рівні нормативної грошової оцінки ділянки. Тож, хто має право на пільговий викуп земельних ділянок і як це зробити? Давайте розбиратися. Підставою для пільгового викупу землі є права на землю, які ви бачите на екрані. Тобто ви можете викупити ділянку, якщо у вас є акт на право довічного успадкованого володіння землею, право постійного користування землею або оренди землі. Перш за все, вам необхідно отримати дозвіл на викуп земельної ділянки із земель комунальної власності від Ради відповідної територіальної громади. Аби Рада розглянула це питання, треба подати такі документи. Один з 3 документів, про які ми щойно згадували – державний акт на право довічного успадкованого володіння землею, право постійного користування землею або договір оренди землі, витяг із кадастру про земельну ділянку, витяг із документації про нормативну грошову оцінку ділянки, заяву про намір викупу. Якщо у вас немає витягів, потрібно їх отримати. Докладніше про те, як це зробити, можете послухати у інших наших відео за посиланням. Зверніть увагу, що витяг можна отримати тільки на ділянку, якій присвоєно кадастровий номер. Ось і все. Так легко фермер може стати власником земельної ділянки.
Good morning again, and we are back, and we continue our next panel with a new composition of invited guests. I invited Taras Vysotský, Deputy Minister of Development of Economy, Trade and Agriculture of Ukraine. Thank you very much, Victoria, and dear participants. Really, in the first part, we were speaking about very important aspects from the point of view of precise functioning of agricultural lands and how it is very important to verify. And everyone understands that protection of the right, it is a key right. And when we are coming to discussion of financing of this circulation, and representatives of the bank will confirm that protection of the land permits financing and the functioning of the land afterwards. But there are several aspects. First of all, I would like to depict briefly what are the initiatives and at what phases they are in for implementation and for possibility to attract financing by agro producers for buying lands. So we can define two blocks and two phases when the market of land will be launched. Since 1st July, the physical persons, individuals would buy the lands, and since the January, the legal entities will buy, and I will be focusing on the possibilities that it will be possible for legal entities, for pharma companies, and Sergey was speaking about pharma companies about from the 1st July, but since the last year, 2020, the decree of Cabinet of Ministers is working, then providing for compensation of interests from lending. So if we look at today, it is about 11% of interest rate for lending. But second block, the compensation should be monthly. So if it is working today, since January to March, 90 millions were paid under this program, but there are no lendings because no loans are taken for the land. But legal entities will have the possibilities to take lands and get finances. They will automatically under this program. The only thing it should be bigger, because this year was 1,200,000,000 were envisaged. Already 1 billion was taken, and next year it will be bigger. And we calculated in 2019 that if we launch the market, and we were calculating for 4 billion, and then the interest rate is lower. So we recalculated that it should be 2 billion about, and we should understand that since 2022, this money should be envisaged. So we know the mechanism. We will know the interest rate of the National Bank of Ukraine. This money should be allocated as a second instrument or tool, which will help. But the resolution 300 is the same for everyone, but it is for average class of producers. But there are some reclamations that it is very difficult to get financing, because there is no enough collaterals. But there are two solutions. First of them is working. Actually, I would like to mention that last days of December in 2020, we launched as a mechanism of portfolio guarantees about 4 billion hryvnias were allocated for that, and 8 banks got these 3.9 billion hryvnias, and up to a single hryvnia. I would like to say that 4 months afterwards, this program is functioning, and in 4 months, the financing was provided by the 1st of May, about 2 billion hryvnias. I would like to stress that the biggest sector which took the 29% of all finances, agriculture took this money for portfolio guarantees, 28% whole, and retail sales, and then food processing industry. So the program is working.
Portfolio guarantees instrument was implemented, so actually out of 4 million, 2.7 billion hryvnias were channeled for the entities. So practically, actually, those here, we understand we will have the workable collateral instrument. So for the agrarians, in order to get funding, actually, collateral is very clear. Experience also very important. But agrarians could enjoy this right. It's the ongoing program, but we understand that available and accessible resources we do have, and for us it's important actually to have the land valuation and to work on the coefficient that could be applied to this. And in order, for example, we may use this coefficient and only have as a collateral the land at which we provide this landing. For us, it's important to understand what will be so with the minimum payments, actually, under this portfolio guarantees instrument, farmers could invite these resources. If, for example, we understand that machinery should not be provided as this mechanism as a collateral, we don't have this documented, but portfolio guarantees actually, those who have the better credit history, those crediting history, they will also have the best terms to get these resources. The crediting fund also will work on the actually this issue has been already heard in the parliament sessions, and for us it's important to mention that another 6 months is needed in order to see really how this instrument will work when it is launched. And for this group, we understand that also through this fund, crediting fund, also those who will enter the land market, they will benefit from it because they could also take resources in order to build up their own melioration system. Funding also will be affordable for the farmers, and on the other hand, also certain guarantees will be because they will have a clear-cut collateral instrument. I believe that all those who wished, with no regard to the acreage of the land, the most important is the wish of the farmer to buy out this land. And we have already discussed what are the parameters of those who will enter this first phase. From the 1st of July, buyers are identified as the individuals. So individuals and legal persons, whether they could rely on something or whether they could enter the land market only from the year 2024. Actually, it is discussed now for us because we will see the readiness of the banking sector to provide funding for these transactions with the legal entities who wish to buy the land. So the same mechanism will be used because maybe certain compensation terms will be also provided for the legal entities. But we should also have the valuation on the collateral. We should also work on the coefficient to be applied for the transactions with the legal entities. Because individuals actually, if, for example, wishes only to buy the land and then to transfer it on a lease, we are not planning to give support for such transactions because those who plan only to buy out the land and then not to work on it, we are not planning. For us, it's a minimum requirement that the land that is bought in ownership, these individuals have enjoyed already the compensation rights for the interest rate. That's why they should work on this land. We understand that we expect that those who buy this land, individuals, they will work on it for the production. And it's a very specific issue because it's critical, and we understand this understanding with the citizens is very critical. We address our Women's Studio if you have any question. For us, it's important what will be the side effects from the land transactions. Actually, what interest rates are planned on this. Economic factor is that the final model that is adopted. Also, what will be the cost of the land? For us, it's important to understand that because we don't expect the mass sell and buy transactions. For us, it's important actually to plan all this based on the 6 months experience. Everything will depend on the proceeds on the sale. And we expected that in 2019, depending on the region, the cost will be from 40 to 60,000 hryvnias per hectare. Actually, the exchange rate hryvnia dollar has not changed dramatically. What has changed after 2019, that is the agricultural product costs. And here we have two factors. If it is short of a short-time trend for 1-2 years, this is not a significant contribution at the startup. This range will be the same. If this is a longer period trend for the cost of foodstuffs, we realize. Actually, we understand we should be realistic that this time we expect that the foodstuff costs will increase, and it's actually we could assess the average price cycle was $160, $180 now. It has increased by 40%, and if it is the midterm trend, we believe that with time Maybe with time, the average cost for the land will be around 70,000 hryvnias. Good afternoon. One year ago, the Minister of Agriculture actually did not work closely with the Ministry of Economy because Petrashka now has left the office. Because actually there were many questions. We got many questions with regards to the land costs, and for us, the cost of land is a very critical issue. We know that currently we have the draft law registered on the land costs. But what guarantees could be provided by the state from the viewpoint of thank you very much for the continuous feedback on all the initiatives that have been raised by the ministry, because all these changes are due to the feedback from the National Agrarian Association. The issue of the land costs in government introduced some laws on the land cost. Some deputies certainly registered the alternative draft law. It's a very complex issue, and we should have a comprehensive approach to it. I believe that when we have a sitting with the Agrarian Association, we'll invite representatives of Agrarian Association to the Agrarian Parliamentary Committee, and we will be working on it. Without the working instrument and without consultations, we cannot speak about the economic effect. It will not be fully fledged. And it pertains to different parts of the economy, not only for crop farming. It also should touch such issues as viticulture, horticulture, animal production. So the reform is needed. We have colleagues here, and they will actually highlight what is given in the alternative draft law. And now we'll get to the next question. Mikhail Sokolov. He's the representatives of the public union, and yesterday they introduced the alternative draft of the law with regard to the land consolidation. We are talking over not only on agricultural land consolidation, but some other issues. It is a comprehensive consolidation that covers the issues of the land buyout for the joint common needs, for the production, recreational purposes, what is actually needed for the communities, because sometimes communities should consolidate the land in order to address this or that social projects. This draft of the law is comprehensive, and it focuses on land consolidation. Now let's focus on the issue consolidation for the agricultural. We should actually, what should we do in order not to have the chessboard? We were working closely with our colleagues in the parliament, deparcellation. So we should create a single areas, and this will be to the benefit of the communities. we are working to the benefit of the country. We should give the rights for the agricultural sector in this country. And here we pursue a sort of a state and social purpose. And due to this, actually, we could explain why, if we limit rights of ownership, because we have certain limitations, what approach has been selected? Currently, we have the law on consolidation that is effective principally, formally. In principle, if the person does not agree with the proposed mechanism for consolidation, they don't want to exchange the parcels, we may force it through the court. Then we will have lots of litigation cases, and practically we will not organize the process. We have some in the draft law, in case we have those who don't agree to consolidation pattern, then maybe if you have a court, this court will actually see whether all consolidation laws are observed. There are no property rights violation, and nobody is harmed. Then we cannot remove our litigation system, and that's why judicial system and then also we will work on this as well. If we actually don't speak about comprehensive consolidation, and we speak consolidation through certain parcel-based system, this is a so-called agreed-on-based consolidation. Simply, it could be said that it is a simple exchange of parcels. So the parcels could be exchanged. Then we prepare the exchange agreement, parcel exchange agreement. It's multi-side one. It includes all the actors, and then they should check whether there are those who do not agree. There are certain agreements that on conditions on which they should agree on. If, for example, if we have one owner, they have several parcels on the consolidated area, actually, there should not be access to the road on this. Roads are very critical here. There should not be a case if the person who has the land parcels after the land parcel exchange, there should not be a situation when the standard land cost valuation of the land parcel in exchange will increase by 10%. We should not degrade the conditions of the land parcels under irrigation, and the exchanged parcel is not irrigated. If, for example, the land parcel was in a nice environment and now it's somewhere in the ravine, it's all these issues are treated in the draft of the law, and actually this will provide a sort of a true working mechanism in order to have in exchange an equal land parcel. If, for example, there are no persons who do not agree to consolidation parcel, then this land parcel exchange agreement is signed. If there are those who do not agree, initiative group have grounds to get to the court in order to have the rule of the court. And then, based on the rule of the court, this decision will come into force. Actually, this draft of the law actually allows us to have a workable instrument. Sometimes you could find people who do not agree, who are not happy, and then, for example, the court will check whether all the conditions are complied to, and then the rule of the court based on that. Then the land management also is very important. Sometimes consolidation is not available through the simple land parcel exchange. With this, we invite the land management specialist who actually redraw, and this it will be a resharing of the land to be consolidated. They will be of logical form land parcels, but all these conditions should be complied for because there should be access to the road. But in this case, we will have a real land area to be consolidated. Sometimes through these simple mechanisms of land parcel exchange, this cannot be attained. So this is a very good mechanism. In case there are those who do not agree, they could go to the court, and through the rule of the court, they will have approved this decision. If, for example, if in the territory to be consolidated, 20% of acreage of their owners do not agree, then actually it's a good reason in order to have this agreement. Because you know, sometimes we don't speak about the forced consolidation, and actually in principle, are the basics of this draft law. On the same principle, consolidation will be on the use when we speak about the lease relations. Logics will be the same, but here, if there is any dispute when we have many parties in the court, the process will go, and then the notary and the state register will make their entries in the state register of property right and in the state cadastre register, and then the area of consolidation will be registered. I would like to check, currently the legislation actually speaks about the area to be consolidated in the cadastre. Actually, whether there are certain bottlenecks around this process. I have already mentioned consolidation is not performed on the boundaries. It is made on the territory of consolidation. Territory of consolidation is decided by the participants of consolidation. There could be the processes when we have a big field, and in the part of the field they want to consolidation, in the part of the field they don't want. Consequently, those who wish, they could draw their borders in order to include all their parcels, and those who disagree to this process will not in the process. Actually, with this, we will address and resolve the problem you mentioned. Consolidation actually goes on in the framework of the consolidation territory. And here we should not build up the consolidation area. Consolidation area should be continuous. It should have the continuous boundaries. It should not be intermittent. We address our women's studio. Do you have any question? Good afternoon. We do hear you. I'm the head of the RADA. With regards to consolidation, I have a question. Is it possible? If, for example, I bought 30 parcels, could I consolidate them as the state land? and then the state will sell it, and will allow us to eliminate this chessboard pattern. As I mentioned, consolidation could take place only within the consolidation territory. In order to initiate a consolidation, you or initiative group should have in use more than 90% of the consolidated territory to be consolidated, and only under these conditions these processes can go on. The situation you described is not covered by this draft of the law. Actually, we don't stop and we don't interfere in the land parcel exchange process. We understand whether it will be possible to do this exchange between the lands in state ownership. Actually, as currently we don't allow the sale of state lands, except the lands in permanent use.
Отдельно этих документаций без архивизации.
So which number in cadastre will be used, the older ones or the new ones? No, we will use the new cadastre numbers because we can do nothing else. The number of plots will change, the area will change, and the process is much more difficult. New plots will appear, their number will appear, and we needed to trace them in the register of property rights, and we needed to trace that the new owners will get the real plots with the exact area and in the same place. Yes, Ivan Kobzarenko has a question to Taras Wysowski. Thank you, Mihailo, for your answer. Ivan, we saw your question in chat, but as it is the question about the banking sector, we have a representative from the banks of Ukraine. So it is a complex question to someone from banking sector and to Taras Wysowski. The farmers who suffered from drought in 2020, will be there any problems again to get loans due to negative balances? Please, Taras, the floor is yours. What changed in the situation as compared to the as it was 1 year ago when the farmers asked to get refinancing? The first, the government decided already that the draft will be compensated according to a certain procedure, and it was discussed even this week. And when the producers are entering already the Ministry of Agrarian Policy and the food, and the procedure will be adopted, and first of all there will be financial support from the state, and the bank will accept it, so it will be seen as official entering amounts, and it will be balancing the situation. Then secondly, in the Verkhovna Rada, the first hearing took place, and it will be discussed already in the tax committee, the draft law on agrarian insurance, which allows the farmers and producers to get insurances against the draft, and they will get the compensation under the insurance. It will be the positive balance on their accounts. And the third thing, the conditions changed, but to achieve these criteria, these potential payments will help. So when there was a case which was not related to negative balance, but once again I will remind the farmers were saying that we gave everything we had for collateral, but today we have a collateral which can be used in the portfolio guarantee. But the balance, of course, should be positive, and these subventions from the state will help, and or insurance from insurance companies. But let's hope there will be no cases like this. Thank you, Taras, and I would like to invite Rostislav Nakonechin, head of advisors group from Association of Ukrainian Banks. Please tell us what is the situation of financing the agrarian producers, and of course telling about the negative balances. Maybe I will answer the first question. Of course, if the result of previous year or negative capital are the balance of the producer, so the mechanism which will be included will be the compulsory insurance, but in the compulsory insurance will improve the business process because insurance will be more expensive, and if drafts will be often, the business model will be changing, because without irrigation this model will not be used. Compensation from the state should be constant, and because the state should understand if they give the subventions to the companies that are losing money, so it is better to finance business models and those who will use irrigations for changing their activities. If we speak about the banking system, now it is taken as a decision that the land will be bought only by the individuals. It means that for banks, the real profile of a client is individual, and it will be an individual or private entrepreneur. But the banks are financing farmers and legal entities, and if we use these business models for lending, for purchase of land, it is not compatible so much with the idea what should be supported. If we say that now the state want to support individuals, small peasants, so it is micro business financing, and now micro business is working in a shadow, and we needed to take decisions would take it out of shadow. So we should create a model which be allowing them somebody who was working in shadow for 5-7 years has incomes and cannot support these incomes, but we should tell him that different, you should come and you should register farmer company, and the state will give you 100% guarantee to work legally. And if you work legally, you will be capable to get financing in bank in 1 week. But if we do not launch this model now, so the banks who were financing the legal entities, they will lend to them, and the National Bank established the limits which will be fair, and the first of all the requirements to liquidity and collateral. If the collateral is not liquid, this collateral should not be acceptable as seen by National Bank, and the land should be liquid when the market will start to working. But we don't know when the market will work. It can be 1 week later, but maybe in 6 months. But if we see that there is no market, no mechanism of transition, and no experience, and National Bank did not accept it as acceptable, this collateral, and this collateral should not be taken as acceptable. Next criteria, solvability of the borrower. Those who are included in the law at the first phase, these are people who have reached something, maybe in their work, they have some money which can be canalized to to buy land, but the banks are obliged to create for such people some special products, and these products will have specific criteria which will not be acceptable for the banks themselves. So lending to individuals will be possible in a certain time. So to make banks participants of this market will be difficult at the beginning. So we'll come to the position when the transition period will be quite long, and maybe one full season, and real lending to individuals will work at least in 6 months. And I think that first of all, we will get from the first phase with real financing to real working farmer companies. It will be the reflection of the law itself and the targets of the banks where they coincide. But if we speak about legal entities, legal entity can get lending from and then it can give the lending to 10 people who will buy 100 hectares. But is it relevant to support from the budget creation of models like this? If we speak about support of the state, we need to support the small micro business, because if not support micro business in three years, we will have nothing to support because the land will be shifted to big buyers or big legal entities, and this idea of transfer of land will not be implemented. Thank you. And please, Rostislav, tell us, the bank will continue with legal entities, but individuals, for example, if they have some properties like cars or apartments, so will it be limited as getting the collaterals? So legal entities, entrepreneurs, for them there are lots of programs, and for replenishing of working capital, for getting production tools, for real estate, for the machinery, but additional collateral within these programs will be land. It will be additional collateral until when the land market will be launched, and when the land will be sold freely, forcibly, and the purchase of land will be working. So the land as the goods will be accepted as collateral. And in some cases, the banks will create products for purchasing land. And at the first phase, they will be for individuals and for legal entities, and no limitations are there. If we speak about legal entities, there are some limitations. If we took a loan, for example, so the bank should create a passport of product, so with establishing a number of criteria, and where it is written that an individual should have such income coefficient as compared to the amount to be received as a loan. So such criteria will mean that only several persons will get the right to such loans. Who they could be? A person who gets the income of $1,000-$2,000, who wants to get some assets, but it will not be the producer. But if you speak about a small peasant, what can it be? A pension, not sufficient for a loan. Official unofficial income on 2-3 hectares, and he will not get this because he was not registered as a farmer. And until we not create the profile of this client, and on one hand the bank will say what are the requirements to this person, and on the other hand, these people who wanted the loan, they should be compatible with credits, and so the people who wanted to work in the rural areas, we should understand that, and the state should help them at this phase with these guarantees. And I think that the guarantee with 60% of the property, it would not be enough, because it is better to guarantee 100% with the bank, and to agree with the bank that this guarantee will be as a support of the lending, and the bank will be capable to lend to those who will be considered defaultive. And we will be capable to launch these small and micro businesses to do the agriculture activities themselves, and in couple of years they will be coming to come to the land market without support of the state. Please, Uman Studio, your questions. Do you hear us? We have a new microphone. So I will ask this question. This is not about the land market, but we heard the question from Ivan Kobzarenko. He's from Odessa region. If you remember, there is a story which lasts for 2 years. Let's ask God that it will not repeat. And Ivan was going to the government, and the ministry was working. We supported all Ukrainian council supported, but it was very small. But my question is to Taras and Mihailo, what and why it happened like this? Why did not you help enough the Bessarabia, the Odessa region, enough? So why it so happened? There is no an easy answer, because the phases which should be implemented so that any support could be possible. The first, after the analysis, we understood that inside the legislation, when we have the two types of payment from the reserve fund, it is not possible to pay to private legal entities, and you saw that there were lots of floods in Carpathian region, and to Lugansk region there were fires, and so reserve fund was used for state companies, and it was not for Bessarabia, for Odessa region, for private companies. And these norms were written in the law in May, but the law was adopted in October. Why it was accepted? Why it was adopted in 6 months, I cannot say, and President signed it in December at the beginning, and on the beginning of December to distribute the amount from 2020, it was not possible physically. So after it was adopted, the only chance was 2021, and in 2021, on the recent decision, 3rd March, we decided it to distribute, but the procedure was not adopted because the ministry was transformed, and the ministry, hopefully it will not happen every year, but it is a factor which is not standard. But I would say that not only natural conditions, but institutional situations were negative as well.
Thank you. In the previous panel discussion, there was a question from the Women's Studio, how you will test the origin of the resources. We understand that they expect the resolution from the Cabinet of Ministers that will actually allow us to have a list of documents from which they could really test the origin of the resources. What documents to be prepared by our individuals in the agrarian business in order to prove the origin of the resources? I will cite for you some wording from the resolution resolution. Resolution was actually prepared by the Ministry of Justice. In the no approval process has been passed in the Ministry of Economy. Then we will communicate this document to the government, and in 2 weeks' timing it will be adopted. Protocol of means testing, or this money testing protocol, and there are some items here, and then it is to be signed by the parties and by the notary. There is one item here as a sort of a data criteria, information, citizenship, Ukraine, individual, not legal entity. We remember that it is banned to get funding from the state aggressor. So actually there is one item where we should test the resources, what they should submit for this declaration that is always submitted on the annual basis by the 1st of May, because there is declaration. Actually, the taxation office should issue the certificate confirming this declaration. Then it should be the excerpt on the wages, and also you may collect your wages and buy the land. And then with legal entity, and the third item, and actors, when you are paid dividends, then also you may have the certificates on the dividends payments. Also, loan deposits in the bank also could be invited to this process. And declaration from the taxation office, if you have some other incomes, if it is registered and covered by the declaration, no problem. For example, we are talking over the bank products that could be made available for individuals. If, for example, it is the individual that plans to get credit, or if the person gets money from the other individual, actually you see in this case the origin of the resources has not been checked, so we are planning to change this procedure. Is our understanding it correct? As the actors in the land buy and sell transactions could be different persons. If, for example, if they have the head of the enterprise of the farm gets this credit, actually, whether it is planned that these resources also could act as a pledge in order to apply for the crediting. We expect that no doubt that the models to be simplified. If we are talking over the profile of clients as it is covered by the law, these are individuals who have the land as the asset. The bank has the asset in the form of a loan. And here there is certain description. And in order for the bank, it's better to have the bank product on which they will get some earnings. And the individuals should be prudent. And the recoupment should be calculated for the timing of 5-7 years. And if the owners of this land are 5 and more people, also this should be covered. And individuals, when they have additional profits, because with time legal persons will enter the land market as well, so they could actually re-register their agreements and then loan agreements and act as the side represented as a legal entity. But the purpose of the state is to give support to the micro businesses. So our main efforts should be focused on this. All banks are getting ready for launching the land market in this, but they actually should base their operations on the documents that are current legislation. There are certain limitations in different, because you see there are also, if, for example, their financial reporting is not fully clear for the bank, with such individuals, bank will not work. Also, it's necessary to give the strategic support for actually coefficient equal to 0.35% on the land cost is too low. We should actually work on this because crediting should be made available for the people, because sometimes there could arise different situations. Sometimes people cannot agree on their business plans. In this regard, we should give support for such individuals who could compile their business plans. I would like to add here one more issue. Here, we are in a certain conflict and contradiction. If we are trying to do in the way, so if there are, for example, individuals who don't declare that they do agrarian business, we cannot give support for them as it is given in the law. Currently, the task for us is to explain for the villagers they should actually act as the entrepreneurs. It's necessary to declare their economy and business. We have the economy for the family farms. It's item 4. And here, the person will perform as the individual entrepreneur. But they should have registered business, and in principle, those who work in the shade cannot get the state support. If you would like to get the support, please get out of the shade, and you could build in the programs of the state support described by Taras Vysotsky. And they will be bankable. Actually, with these, banks will see you as a client. And to try to do, if you have those individuals who work in the shade and they don't want to get out of this shade, we should that it will distort the state aim to give support for the individuals. It will be in conflict with the banking principles, because banks want to get the overall information on the clients, and it in conflict with the real logics. If you have an economy, it should be a registered, de-shadowed economy. So in this regard, I believe there is no global program that we should actually focus for certain programs on those who don't want to legalize their business, their economy. We understand that they should be legalized in order to be participants of the state programs. With regard to the state support, it should be also on the informational level. If you have 3 hectares, you would like to get 10 hectares, what you should do, you should get registered to show your financial documentation and reports for the last 2 years. If we don't want to give support to the micro businesses, we should have started from the very beginning. For us, it's important to have a clear vision whether those who want to buy the land really will work on it, because I will give you a very clear answer. We are working in a real world. We have with the fuel storages. It was introduced, the legislation was introduced many years ago, but people got to know that this legislation is available only when they encounter certain problems. 2.5 years elapsed when we actually encountered the rules of this market. People will realize with time what they should do. But unless we have not a workable land market, we will have not a clear idea how it will work. 6 months is a good period for us to get a good understanding what is workable or not. And then actually, probably in 12 months, we will have a certain stratum of individuals who can really get this support. It's good that we have some transitional time. Probably everything will work in another fashion. If people have certain land, they will have a chance to work on their land. They will go not to the banks, but they will probably go to another financial institutions where services are more expensive. They will continue their shadow economy businesses, but they will get these resources from these more costly financial institutions. It's my vision. For us, it's important to have a certain stratum of population, to have a sort of easier procedures for these people in order they will get to the banks. Probably we don't have a full understanding to what extent these processes are complex. Informational policy is so important. It should be a global program. We give support for individuals because certain guarantee mechanisms could be made available for them, because for us it's very difficult to give 100% support, because there could be a default with such client, and then to have 100% default transaction, it is not to the benefit of the bank. But in case we have a sort of a prudent borrowers, it will be also to the benefit of the banking sector. Actually, we are very close to the time to finalize our panel discussion. We have some questions. We understand that there are certain projects for the support of the state cadastre. They are ongoing projects. We have conducted 24 regional roundtables. Also, we plan to have more regional roundtables. We invite all the representatives of the agrarian community. In the second round of the regional roundtables are planned. Actually, we'll be discussing different issues, including the privilege right. For us, it's important to give you a full know of what is available for you. I believe that for the audience, it was very important and critical to be with us. I wish you all the best and strong health.